Maya stared at her laptop screen, watching her bank account balance drop lower each day. Being a graduate student in biology wasn't exactly paying the bills, and her tiny apartment near the university was eating up most of her savings. She had 3 weeks to find a roommate or she'd have to move back with her parents. The thought made her stomach turn. She scrolled through endless roommate apps, reading post after post of people who wanted to party every night or had 17 cats. Nothing seemed right. Just when she was about to give up, a notification popped up on her phone. Someone had responded to her listing within minutes of her posting it. The message was simple. "Hello, I am very interested in your room. I am quiet, clean, and can pay first 3 months upfront. My name is Zix. I am exchange student from very far north. May we meet tomorrow?" Maya blinked at the screen. 3 months upfront? That was like winning the lottery. She quickly typed back, agreeing to meet at the local coffee shop the next afternoon. The next day, Maya arrived at the coffee shop early, nervously checking her phone every few minutes. She had no idea what to expect. When someone tapped her shoulder, she turned around and nearly dropped her coffee. The person standing behind her was unlike anyone she'd ever seen. They were tall, probably around 6.5 feet, with skin that seemed to have a slight glow to it, like they'd been dusted with shimmer powder. Their eyes were the strangest part. They seemed to change color as Maya watched, shifting from green to blue to something almost purple. "You are Maya, yes?" they said, their voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't place. "I am Zix. Thank you for meeting with me." Maya managed to close her mouth and nod. Yeah, that's me. "Nice to meet you, Zix. That's an interesting name. It is common where I come from," Zix replied, sitting down across from her. "Very far north. Different naming traditions there." They talked for about an hour, and Maya found herself warming up to this strange person. Zix was polite, well-spoken, and seemed genuinely interested in living peacefully. When Maya asked about their background, Zix explained they were studying human behavior for their advanced degree. "I am very interested in how people live together," Zix said, their eyes flickering that odd color change again. "Your culture is fascinating to me. I promise to be a respectful roommate." The conversation took an interesting turn when they discussed practical matters. Zix mentioned they didn't eat much regular food, preferring what they called energy supplements and fermented vegetables. They also said they were very quiet and mostly studied at night. "I do not sleep much," Zix explained. "I hope this will not disturb you. I am very quiet when I study." Maya thought this sounded perfect. A quiet roommate who stayed up at night while she slept. It was like a dream come true. When Zix pulled out an envelope with 3 months' rent and crisp, new bills, Maya decided to ignore the little voice in her head that said something was off. They walked back to Maya's apartment together, and she showed Zix around. The apartment was small but cozy, with 2 bedrooms, a shared bathroom, and a living area that connected to the kitchen. Zix seemed particularly interested in the electrical outlets and spent a long time examining the microwave. "Very efficient design," they murmured, running their fingers along the appliances. "Much better than what I'm used to." Maya found this comment odd, but she was getting used to Zix's unusual way of speaking. Maybe English wasn't their first language, or maybe they came from a really rural area up north where technology was different. They spent the evening going over house rules. Maya explained about sharing bathroom time, keeping common areas clean, and being respectful of each other's space and belongings. Zix listened carefully, occasionally asking questions that seemed strange. Why do humans require so much privacy? Zix asked when Maya mentioned knocking before entering each other's rooms. "It's just how we are." Maya replied, "We like our personal space. It makes us feel comfortable and safe." Zix nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. I will respect all boundaries. This is very important for my studies." As the days passed, Maya began to notice Zix's unusual habits. They never seemed to sleep, often staying up all night with soft humming sounds coming from their room. Sometimes Maya would hear them talking in a language she'd never heard before, though she never saw anyone else in the apartment. The strangest thing was how all the electronics in the apartment seemed to work better since Zix moved in. Maya's old laptop, which used to crash constantly, now ran like new. The internet was faster, and even her phone battery lasted longer. Maya also noticed that Zix seemed to have an unusual relationship with the houseplants. They would talk to them regularly, not just the casual hello, little plant that Maya sometimes did, but actual conversations. She once heard Zix having what sounded like a serious discussion with the fern in the living room. When Maya asked about it, Zix just smiled and said, "Plants are very good listeners. They understand more than people think, despite these quirks." Maya found herself enjoying having Zix around. They were considerate, helped keep the apartment clean, and always had interesting things to say about human behavior and culture. Zix asked a lot of questions about everyday things that most people took for granted. Why do humans wear different clothes for sleeping? Zix asked one evening while they were watching television together. "I don't know. Comfort, I guess," Maya replied. "Pajamas are just more comfortable for sleeping." And why do humans cover themselves with blankets when the temperature is already comfortable? Maya had never really thought about it. Security. Maybe it just feels cozy and safe. Zix would nod and sometimes make notes on a tablet they always carried. Maya assumed they were working on some kind of anthropology project for school. 3 weeks into their living arrangement, Maya realized she'd made the right choice. Zix was the perfect roommate, quiet, clean, respectful, and interesting to talk to, sure. They had some unusual habits, but everyone had quirks. Maya was just happy to have found someone who helped her afford her apartment and didn't leave. Dirty, dishes everywhere, little did she know that her quiet, considerate roommate was about to accidentally discover something that would change their relationship forever, setting the stage for the most embarrassing and enlightening conversation of her life. As weeks turned into months, Maya started noticing more strange things about her roommate. At first, she thought maybe she was just being paranoid, but the evidence kept piling up. It started with the sleeping thing. Maya had always been a light sleeper, and she never once heard Zix's alarm go off in the morning. Actually, she never heard any sounds of sleeping at all. No snoring, no tossing and turning, nothing. When she mentioned it casually, Zix just shrugged and said people from their region didn't need much sleep. "We are very efficient with rest," Zix explained. That strange color-changing thing happening with their eyes again. A few hours here and there is enough. Maya found this hard to believe. But she'd heard of people who naturally needed very little sleep. Maybe Zix was just one of those lucky people. Then there were the conversations with plants. At first, Maya thought it was cute. Lots of people talked to their houseplants. But Zix's conversations were different. They were long, detailed discussions that sounded like Zix was actually getting responses. One morning, Maya was getting ready for class when she heard Zix in the living room having what sounded like a heated argument with the spider plant. No, that will not work," Zix was saying in their strange accent. "The timing is all wrong. We must wait for the right conditions." Maya peeked around the corner and saw Zix sitting cross-legged on the floor, facing the plant directly. Their hands were hovering over the leaves, and Maya could swear she saw a faint glow coming from their palms. "Everything okay out there?" Maya called out, not wanting to interrupt whatever meditation or plant care ritual Zix was doing. "Yes, very good," Zix replied quickly, standing up and brushing off their pants. "Just checking plant health. Very important to maintain proper care." Maya nodded, though she thought it was odd that Zix seemed embarrassed about being caught talking. To plants, she did it too, sometimes. The electronic situation was getting even weirder. Maya's ancient laptop, which used to take forever to start up, now booted instantly. Her internet speed had somehow tripled, even though she hadn't changed her plan. Even her neighbor commented that their Wi-Fi was working better than ever. "It's like having a tech wizard living with you," Maya joked to her friend Luna over coffee. "Everything just works perfectly now." But the strangest thing was Zix's endless questions about human behavior. They asked about everything, and Maya meant everything. Why did humans shake hands when meeting? Why did they say bless you when someone sneezed? Why did they close their eyes when they kissed in movies? I'm doing research project. Zix explained when Maya asked about all the questions. Very important for my studies. I must understand human social patterns. Maya thought this made sense. Maybe Zix was studying anthropology or psychology. That would explain their fascination with human behavior. One evening, Maya was watching her favorite cooking show when Zix sat down next to her with their ever-present tablet. Why does the human put dead plant matter in hot water? Zix asked, pointing at the screen where the chef was making tea. You mean tea? Maya laughed. It's not dead plant matter, it's tea leaves. People drink it because it tastes good and has caffeine. But why heat the water first? Maya paused. She'd never really thought about it. I guess because hot tea tastes better than cold tea, and it helps release the flavor from the leaves. Zix made notes on their tablet. And humans do this for pleasure, not nutrition. Well, both I suppose. Some teas are good for you, but mostly people drink it because they like it. Fascinating, Zix murmured. Writing more notes. These conversations happened daily. Zix would ask about human customs that seemed perfectly normal to Maya, but apparently bizarre to someone from wherever Zix came from. They were particularly confused by human clothing choices. Why do humans wear different clothes for different activities? Zix asked one day while Maya was changing into workout clothes. Because different clothes are better for different things. Maya explained, these are for exercising because they're comfortable and stretchy. My work clothes are more professional looking. My pajamas are soft and cozy for sleeping. But why not just wear the most comfortable clothes all the time? Maya thought about this. I guess because society expects certain things. You can't show up to a job interview in pajamas. You know, why not? Because it's not appropriate. It would send the wrong message about how seriously you take the job. Zix looked genuinely puzzled. What message would it send? That you don't care enough to dress properly, that you're not professional. But if the clothes are more comfortable, would you not work better in them? Maya found herself stumped. When Zix put it that way, it did seem kind of silly. But that was just how things worked. The food situation was another source of constant questions. Zix ate very little regular food, seeming to survive mostly on what they called energy supplements. That looked like glowing vitamins, and fermented vegetables that smelled terrible but apparently came from their homeland. Why do humans eat so many different types of food? Zix asked while Maya was making dinner. Because different foods taste good and give us different nutrients, Maya replied, stirring her pasta. But would it not be more efficient to eat only what provides necessary energy? Maybe, but eating isn't just about efficiency. It's about pleasure, culture, socializing. Food brings people together. Zix watched Maya cook with the same fascination that a scientist might watch a lab experiment. They asked about every ingredient, every cooking technique, every decision Maya made. Why do you add salt to the water? It helps the pasta cook better and adds flavor. Why do you stir the sauce? So it doesn't stick to the pan and burn. Why do you taste it while cooking? To make sure it tastes good and adjust the seasoning. Each answer led to more questions. Maya started to feel like she was being studied, which she supposed she was, given Zix's research project. Despite all the strange questions and odd behaviors, Maya found herself genuinely enjoying Zix's company. They were thoughtful, respectful, and surprisingly funny. Once you got used to their way of speaking, their perspective on human behavior made Maya think about things she'd never questioned before. Maya also noticed that Zix seemed lonely sometimes. They never talked about friends or family, never got phone calls or messages from home. When Maya asked about it, Zix would just say that people from their region were very independent and didn't communicate much. Do you miss home? Maya asked one evening. Zix was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, but I am learning much here. This experience is very valuable. What's your home like? Very different from here. Much more organized, less chaos, people. They do not ask as many questions about why things are done certain ways. Maya sensed there was more to the story, but she didn't want to pry. Everyone had their secrets. and Zix was entitled to privacy about their background. As their friendship grew, Maya began to feel protective of her strange roommate. She started explaining social situations that seemed to confuse Zix, helping them navigate the complexities of human interaction. Neither of them realized that their growing bond was about to be tested in the most unexpected and embarrassing way possible. It had been one of those days that made Maya question why she ever thought graduate school was a good idea. Her lab experiment had failed for the third time in a row. Her professor had criticized her research methods in front of the entire class, and she'd spilled coffee on her only clean lab coat. By the time she dragged herself home that evening, Maya felt like she'd been hit by a truck. All she wanted was a hot shower and to forget this day ever happened. "I'm home," she called out as she walked through the door, dropping her backpack with a heavy thud. "Welcome back," Zix replied from the kitchen, where they were doing their usual evening routine of talking to the plants. "How was your day?" "Terrible," Maya groaned. "I'm going to take a long shower and pretend today never happened." "That sounds like a good plan," Zix said, their voice carrying that gentle tone they used when they could tell Maya was stressed. "I will be quiet so you can relax." Maya grabbed her towel and headed to the bathroom. She turned the water as hot as she could stand it and stepped under the stream, letting the heat wash away the tension in her shoulders. For the first time all day, she felt like she could breathe again. She stayed under the water much longer than usual, letting the steam fill the small bathroom. The hot water felt so good that she lost track of time, just standing there and letting her mind go blank. Meanwhile, Zix was in the living room, studying their tablet and making notes about human stress responses. They had become quite fascinated by how Maya dealt with difficult days, and they were working on a section of their research about human coping mechanisms. As they worked, Zix became aware of an unusual sound. The water in the bathroom had been running for over an hour, which seemed excessive even by human standards. They had been carefully tracking Maya's daily routines as part of their research, and she typically spent only 15 to 20 minutes in the bathroom. Zyx began to worry. They had read about humans falling asleep in bathtubs and drowning, or slipping and injuring themselves in showers. What if Maya had fainted from stress? What if she had fallen and couldn't get up? Their concern grew as the water continued running. They walked to the bathroom door and listened carefully. They could hear the shower running, but no movement or sounds from Maya. "Maya?" Zix called through the door. "Are you okay in there?" No response. "Maya." They tried again. Louder this time. Still nothing. Zix's worry turned to panic. In their home world, when someone didn't respond to calls for help, it usually meant something was seriously wrong. They had to check on Maya, but they couldn't open the door because of the privacy rules she had explained. Then Zix remembered one of their natural abilities that they had forgotten to mention. When they moved in, back home, they could phase through certain materials when necessary. They had never used this ability in Maya's apartment because they respected her privacy rules. But this seemed like an emergency situation. Zix concentrated and felt their molecular structure shift slightly. They stepped forward and passed through the bathroom door, expecting to find Maya unconscious or injured. Instead, they found Maya standing perfectly fine under the shower, eyes closed, completely relaxed for the first time Zix had ever seen her. The problem was, Maya was not wearing any clothes. For a moment, Zix stood frozen in shock, not because of Maya's appearance, but because of what they were witnessing. In their extensive research on human behavior, they had read about the concept of humans being vulnerable and authentic, but they had never actually observed it. Maya looked completely different from how Zix had ever seen her. All the tension was gone from her face. Her shoulders weren't hunched with stress. She looked peaceful, natural, completely herself without any of the social masks that humans typically wore. This was exactly what Zix had been trying to understand in their research. This was a human in their most natural state, without any of the cultural performance that usually happened when people were around others. Zix's academic mind went into overdrive. This was incredible data for their thesis. They quickly pulled out their tablet and started taking notes. completely forgetting about the privacy invasion aspect of the situation. Fascinating. Zix whispered to themselves, typing rapidly. Subject shows complete relaxation response. No social performance. Behaviors. This is authentic human state. At that moment, Maya opened her eyes and turned off the water. She reached for her towel and stepped out of the shower, still completely unaware that she wasn't alone. It wasn't until she turned around that she saw Zix standing there with their tablet, eyes wide with excitement, frantically taking notes. Maya screamed, not a little yelp of surprise, but a full volume horror movie scream that probably woke up the neighbors. She grabbed her towel and wrapped it around herself as quickly as possible, her face turning bright red. "What are you doing in here?" she yelled. "How did you get in?" "I locked the door." Zix, suddenly realizing the gravity of the situation, looked up from their tablet with a confused expression. "I was worried about you," they said, as if this explained everything. "You were not responding to my calls, and the water was running for a very long time. I thought you might be injured, so you just walked through the door." Maya was still yelling, clutching her towel tighter. Yes, I can do that. Sometimes. But Maya, this is wonderful. I finally understand what humans mean by authenticity. You look so peaceful, so natural. This is exactly what I needed for my research." Maya stared at Zix in disbelief. "Your research? You were taking notes?" "Yes. This is breakthrough moment for my thesis. I have been trying to understand human vulnerability and natural behavior, and this is perfect example. You can't take notes on me in the shower." Maya was somewhere between embarrassed and furious. "But why not? This is valuable scientific data. You are exhibiting completely natural human behavior with no social performance. It is fascinating." Maya realized that Zix genuinely didn't understand why this was a problem. They looked at her with the same academic curiosity they showed when asking about human customs, completely missing the social inappropriateness of the situation. "Zix," Maya said, trying to calm down, "humans don't like being observed when they're bathing. It's private, very private." "But I was not observing you for personal reasons," Zix protested. "This was purely scientific. I was studying authentic human behavior. That doesn't matter. You can't study people without their permission, especially not when they're in the bathroom." Zix looked genuinely confused. "But how else would I observe natural human behavior? When humans know they are being studied, they change their behavior." Maya realized she was having a very strange conversation while standing in a bathroom, wearing only a towel. "Can we please continue this discussion after I get dressed?" "Of course," Zix said, still looking puzzled. "But first, can you explain why humans are so concerned about others seeing their natural form from a scientific perspective? There's nothing unusual about human anatomy." Maya felt her face get even redder. "Because it's private, it's personal. People don't just walk around without clothes because they don't. But why? Because that's how society works. Just, please go wait in the living room while I get dressed, and then we'll talk about this." Zix nodded and started toward the door, then paused. "How should I exit? Through the door normally, or the way I came in?" "The normal way. Use the door handle like a regular person." As Zix fumbled with the door handle, Maya realized that her quiet, respectful roommate had just turned her world upside down. Not only had they somehow walked through a locked door, but they had been taking scientific notes on her shower routine. She had a feeling this conversation was going to be very interesting. Maya sat on the couch, now fully dressed in her comfortable pajamas, still trying to process what had just happened. Zix sat across from her, clutching their tablet like a lifeline, their eyes doing that strange color-shifting thing more rapidly than usual. "Okay," Maya said, taking a deep breath. "Let's start with the obvious question. How did you walk through a locked door?" Zix fidgeted with their tablet, looking uncomfortable for the first time since Maya had known them. "It is difficult to explain. Where I come from, we have certain abilities that are considered normal." "What kind of abilities?" "I can adjust my molecular density temporarily. It allows me to pass through some materials when necessary." Zix said this as if they were discussing the weather. Maya blinked slowly. "You can what now?" "I can make Myself less solid for short periods. It is useful for emergencies or when doors are stuck. Zix paused. I forgot to mention this when we discussed house rules. I apologize. Yeah, that's definitely something you should have mentioned, Maya said, her voice getting higher. That's like a pretty big detail to leave out. I did not think it would be relevant. I plan to always use doors normally to respect your privacy customs. Maya rubbed her temples. So you can walk through walls? Not walls, no, only certain materials. And only when I concentrate very hard. It is not easy to do. Zix looked genuinely apologetic. I was truly worried about your safety. In my experience, when someone does not respond to calls for help, it usually means something is wrong. Despite her embarrassment, Maya found herself believing Zix's explanation. They had never given her any reason to doubt their honesty, and their concerns seemed genuine. Okay, so you were worried about me. I can understand that, Maya said. But what was all that excitement about? You were taking notes and saying it was breakthrough research. Zix's eyes lit up again, and they leaned forward eagerly. Maya, this is very important for my work. I have been studying human behavior for months, trying to understand what you call authenticity. But every time I observe humans, they are performing social roles. Performing social roles? Yes, when humans are around others. They change their behavior. They were masks, not real masks, but behavioral ones. They act differently at work than at home. Differently with friends than with strangers. I could never observe true human nature. Maya thought about this. It actually made sense. People did act differently in different situations. But today, Zix continued, their excitement growing. I saw you in your most natural state. You were completely relaxed, completely yourself. No social performance, no behavioral mask. It was genuine human behavior. So you were excited because you finally saw someone acting naturally? Exactly. For my research, this is like finding a rare species that no one has ever documented before. I have been trying to understand human authenticity for so long, and this was the first time I observed it directly. Maya felt her anger starting to fade, replaced by curiosity. What kind of research are you doing exactly? Zix hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. I am working on my doctoral thesis about interspecies emotional authenticity in social behaviors. Interspecies? Maya raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting way to phrase it. I mean, between different cultural groups, Zix said quickly. People from different backgrounds, like my homeland and here. Maya studied Zix's face. Something about their explanation felt incomplete, but she couldn't put her finger on what. Where exactly are you from, Zix? She asked gently. And I mean, really from. Not just very far north. Zix was quiet for a long moment, their fingers nervously tapping on their tablet. When they looked up, their eyes had shifted to a deep blue color that Maya had never seen before. That is complicated to explain, they said finally. Try me. I'm a biology student. I can handle complicated. Zix stood up and began pacing around the small living room. Maya, what if I told you that some things you think are impossible are actually quite common in other places? Like what? Like the ability to phase through certain materials, or the ability to communicate with plant life, or the ability to enhance electronic devices just by being near them? Maya felt her heart start beating faster. Those are all things you can do, yes. And you're saying these abilities are common where you're from. Very common. As common as your ability to cook food or drive automobiles. Maya stared at Zix. Pieces of a puzzle starting to click together in her mind. Zix, are you human? Another long pause. That depends on how you define human. I define human as someone who was born on Earth to human parents. Then no, I'm not human by your definition. Maya felt like the room was spinning. What are you then? I am from a planet you would call Kepler-4b. My people have been studying Earth for many years, preparing for eventual contact. I am part of an advanced cultural exchange program. You're an alien. Maya said it as a statement, not a question. I prefer the term interplanetary exchange student, but yes, I suppose that is accurate. Maya sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Zix continued pacing. occasionally glancing at her with worried expressions. This is why you ask so many questions about human behavior. Maya said finally, yes, everything about human culture is fascinating to me. The way you form emotional bonds, the way you create social rules, the way you find meaning in seemingly random activities, and the plant conversations. I was reporting back to my supervisors about my observations. Plants are excellent communication devices on our planet, the electronics working better. My natural bioelectric field is compatible with your technology. It is accidental side effect of my presence. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. So you're an alien living in my apartment, studying human behavior for your thesis, yes? And you accidentally saw me in the shower while trying to make sure I was safe, yes? And you got excited because it was the first time you'd seen a human acting completely naturally, yes? Maya turned back to face Zix. And now you're telling me the truth because you feel bad about invading my privacy, yes? But also because Zix stopped pacing and looked directly at her. Because I have become genuinely fond of you. Maya, living here, becoming your friend, it was not part of my research plan. But it happened anyway. You consider me a friend? You are the first being from any planet who has treated me with such kindness. Without knowing what I am, you shared your home with me, helped me understand your culture, and you were patient. With all my strange questions, yes, I consider you a very good friend. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. I consider you a good friend too, Zix. Even if you are from outer space, really, you are not frightened or angry? I'm definitely shocked, Maya admitted. But frightened? No, you're still the same respectful, kind, curious person who's been living here for months. The fact that you're from another planet doesn't change that. Zix's eyes shifted to a warm golden color. This reaction is not what I expected based on my research. What did you expect? Fear, rejection, possibly attempts to contact your authorities. Maya laughed, surprising herself. Zix, you do the dishes without being asked and you never hog the bathroom. As roommates go, your species is irrelevant. For the first time since Maya had known them, Zix looked genuinely emotional. Thank you, Maya. Your acceptance means more to me than you know. Just promise me no more walking through doors without permission. I promise. And Maya, would you be willing to help me with my research? With your permission this time. Maya grinned. You know what? I think I'd actually like that. The next few weeks completely changed Maya's life in ways she never could have imagined. Once she got over the initial shock of living with an actual alien, she found herself more excited than scared. After all, how many people could say their roommate was from another planet? Zix seemed relieved to finally be honest about their identity. They no longer had to make up stories about their homeland in the far north, or pretend their strange habits were just cultural differences. Maya watched in amazement as Zix demonstrated some of their abilities. This is how I communicate with the plants, Zix explained one evening, placing their glowing hands near the fern in the living room. On my planet, plants are much more advanced. They form networks that can carry messages across great distances. Maya leaned in closer. Fascinated. What are you telling it? I am asking about the air quality in the apartment and whether it has noticed any changes in your stress levels lately. Plants can tell when I'm stressed? Oh yes. They are very sensitive to bioelectric fields. This one says you have been much more relaxed since we started working together on my research. Maya shook her head in wonder. I never would have believed this a month ago. Their research collaboration had turned out to be incredibly rewarding for both of them. Maya helped Zix understand human behavior from an insider's perspective, while Zix provided Maya with insights into biology and culture that no Earth scientist had ever dreamed of. On my planet, we do not have the concept of privacy the way humans do, Zix explained during one of their research sessions. We are communal beings who share thoughts and experiences freely. The idea that humans need private spaces for certain activities was very difficult for me to understand. But you understand it now, Maya asked, making notes in her own journal. Yes, and I find it fascinating. Privacy allows humans to have internal lives that are separate from their social selves. It creates complexity in your emotional development that my people do not experience. Maya was working on her own project now, documenting her experiences living with an extraterrestrial being. Her biology professor had been amazed when Maya approached her about studying theoretical xenobiology, though Maya had to be careful not to reveal too much. The patterns of behavior you're describing are remarkable. Professor Chen had said during their last meeting, your theoretical alien species shows incredibly sophisticated social structures. Where are you getting these ideas? Just, creative thinking, Maya had replied. I've been reading a lot of science fiction lately. The truth was, Maya was learning things about biology and evolution that challenged everything she thought. She knew Zix's species had evolved completely differently from humans, yet they had developed similar concepts like friendship, curiosity, and the desire to learn. The most surprising thing about humans, Zix said one afternoon while they were both working at the kitchen table, is how you form emotional bonds with beings who are not related to you. You mean friendship, yes, but more than that, you choose to care about the well-being of individuals who provide no genetic or survival advantage to you. On my planet, we work together efficiently, but emotional attachment is reserved for family units. Maya looked up from her laptop. But you said you consider me a friend. You care about my well-being. Zix paused in their typing, their eyes shifting to that thoughtful blue color. Yes, and this has been very confusing for me, according to everything I learned before coming to Earth. I should not have developed personal attachment to you, yet I find myself concerned about your happiness and success in ways that have nothing to do with my research. Maybe your species isn't as different from humans as you think. Perhaps living among humans has changed something in me. Their friendship had deepened in ways that surprised both of them. Maya found herself protective of Zix, making sure they understood social situations that might be confusing or potentially dangerous for them. She helped them practice human expressions and gestures, taught them about Earth customs they hadn't encountered yet, and even helped them improve their English grammar. Zix, in return, shared stories about their home planet that left Maya amazed. They described cities that floated in crystalline formations, beings who could communicate through light patterns, and technology that worked in harmony with living ecosystems rather than replacing them. Would I ever be able to visit your planet? Maya asked one evening while they were watching the stars from their apartment's small balcony. Theoretically, yes, Zix replied, but the journey would take several of your years, and the atmosphere is quite different. You would need significant technological assistance to survive there. What about your people visiting Earth? That is actually part of what my research is preparing for. If my studies show that humans and my people can coexist peacefully, it may lead to official contact within the next decade. Maya felt a chill of excitement. So this research we're doing together could actually influence first contact between our species? Possibly. My findings will be part of a much larger evaluation. But yes, our work here matters. The weight of that responsibility was both thrilling and terrifying. Maya was helping to shape humanity's future relationship with an alien species. And most people didn't even know aliens existed. As winter turned to spring, their living situation had become perfectly comfortable. They had new house rules that accommodated both human privacy needs and Zix's alien requirements. Maya had gotten used to the soft humming sounds that Zix made while studying, and Zix had learned to knock before entering any room. I have news, Zix announced one morning over breakfast. My supervisors have approved an extension to my research program. That's great. How much longer do you get to stay? 2 more Earth years, if I want them? Maya felt a surge of happiness. Do you want them? Zix smiled, an expression that had become much more natural for them over the months. Very much. I have learned more about friendship and human nature in these few months than I expected to learn in my entire research period. Besides, I would miss our conversations about plant care and cooking shows. Speaking of which, Maya said, pulling a letter from her backpack, I got some news too. My professor wants me to present my xenobiology research at the university's science symposium next month. That is wonderful. Will you be nervous speaking to so many people? Terrified, Maya admitted, but also excited. I never thought I'd have something this important to share. You have become an excellent researcher, Maya. Your insights into human behavior have been invaluable to my work, and your insights into, well, everything have changed how I see the world. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both reflecting on how much their lives had changed since that awkward first meeting. At the coffee shop, Zix, Maya said finally, "Yes? I'm really glad you answered my roommate ad, even though I accidentally invaded your privacy and turned out to be from another planet." Maya laughed. "Especially because of that. Life was getting pretty boring before you showed up. I'm glad too. Maya, you have taught me that friendship might be the most important discovery of my entire research mission." As they finished breakfast and prepared for their respective days, Maya reflected on how strange and wonderful her life had become. She was helping an alien understand humanity, while learning that the universe was far more amazing and complex than she had ever imagined. And the best part was, this was just the beginning of their adventure together.